Welcome to the I Work For Him podcast. I'm Michael Miracle, producer of the I Work For Him radio program, the voice of the faith and work movement. Our mission is to transform the workplace of every Christian into a mission field. What does that look like in your workplace? Let's find out right now.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to today's podcast. Recently, Martha and I were interviewed by Mike Henry from Follower of One, followerofone.org. We just wanted to share this interview with you guys because we talked a lot about the Awaken Podcast Network and Follower of One Marketplace mission trips, and we wanted to share that conversation with you. Hope you enjoyed the conversation.
Hey everyone, it's Mike Henry with Follower of One. Welcome to our podcast. Today we have back some of my favorite guests, Jim and Martha Brangenberg from I Work For Him Radio. Tell everyone hi.
Hi everyone.
Hey everybody, glad to be here.
We're just glad to be back with you, Mike. We love being on the air with you.
Hey, I'm glad to have you. It's fun. It's fun now doing these again and learning new things and figuring out new things. And part of the reason why I asked you guys to be in this podcast today, a lot of things have happened since the last time you were on. So you've changed your broadcast schedule. You're in different places now. You used to be on the radio. Tell us about what's going on in I Work For Him.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of things have transitioned into just new timing and things like that. But God is continuing to create new content through I Work For Him, really just to help the listener in their journey with their faith in their work. So we have a daily show, a 1 minute, that is played on radio stations all over the country, but it can be subscribed to on a podcast platform. I Work For Him Power Thought is what that is called, daily. And we also post that on social media, so people can follow us to see that daily. And then we have a weekly fresh broadcast that we're doing in a podcast form. And then we're
releasing on Fridays.
We release on Fridays, and on Tuesdays we release our it's kind of like a condensed format of a show that we've previously done and repurposed the packaging. So that's our Power Pod, also released on the same platform with I Work For Him podcast.
It's like orange juice concentrate, but it's I Work For Him concentrate. All the good stuff without the water.
With a boost of an energy drink.
Yeah.
There you go. And then let's see, what else are we doing? Oh, and all of those things that are visual are on our YouTube channel. So out on YouTube, people can subscribe and watch the very things that we're doing.
And you need to watch it because sometimes we do stuff in the background like this on the YouTube channel that people don't get to see.
And that's so very
radio.
important, Jim.
It is important.
It is. So, but that's a lot of fun.
But we got...
Go ahead.
What? Okay. In 2020, right at the end of the year, we launched I Retire For Him, a new podcast out there that is really focused on moving retirees from retirement to reformation. As I Retire For Him, the mouthpiece for the retirement reformation. And it's all about just the fact that your calling doesn't end when you retire. Your calling ends when you die. Between retirement and death, God's got sometimes 10, 20, 30, 40 years of stuff for you to do. And from our perspective in our country, there is a lot we need you for. We need retirees. Mm-hmm. And we got some new stuff coming up here in 2021. You tell us when you want us to talk about that.
Go right ahead.
All right, so in 2021, we are launching a new show called She Works For Him, which is going to be focused specifically on the needs and the messaging to Christian working women. It'll be hosted by Martha and a couple of other co-hosts that won't be me, just talking about specifically what are the ministries out there for Christian working women, what are the resources out there for Christian working women, and hearing the stories of other Christian working women of how they're connecting their faith to their work. That's a new and exciting one. And of course, we got 3 books that are going to be coming out here sometime end of first quarter, beginning of second quarter. Martha, tell everybody about those.
Yeah, so, for the last 8 years, we've been doing interviews, and everybody's like, you need to have a book. And we're like, well, we'll write a book when God tells us to write a book, not when the marketing gurus tell us to write a book. And whether that was right or wrong, we're just listening to God. And he said, now's the time. So, but it's not 1, it's 3. And so it's
trilogy.
3 collaborative books on I Work For Him Field Manual, She Works For Him Field Manual, and I Retire For Him Field Manual. and they have between those 3 books, there are over 52 contributors to the content, and we're just excited to have those. They're very real life stories and just encouragement with our different those different focuses and different friends in the ministries. So, and in the workplace. So those are very exciting that they're coming out here soon.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see them. I'm looking forward to those books.
Well,
there might have been
be one chapter about follower of one in there.
That's right. That you wrote with your daughter. So that's pretty exciting.
Oh yeah, because Jessica.
So they had to collaborate as well.
Did. And really, Mike, that's it. Everything we're doing in 2021 is about collaboration. If it doesn't involve collaboration with other people within the faith and work movement, we're not going to do it, because that's what the body of Christ needs to see: collaboration demonstrated within the kingdom. What does it look like? Because they don't see a lot of it on the streets of America, and so we just want to be the leader in that, not necessarily so we can claim it, because obviously Jesus talked about it in John 17. He goes, "Hey, everybody will know you're my followers when you cotton pick and get along and act in unity, for crying out loud."
That's the Jim Brangenberg version.
Well, that's the.
It's not really a translation, but it's a paraphrase.
Jim Brangenberg paraphrase.
There you go.
The paraphrase hasn't been published yet.
No, audio version only.
Stay tuned for that one. But the last collaborative effort we've got going on is something that's been in the back of my mind for 28 months, 26 months. We just soft launched the Awaken Podcast Network. You can find it online, awakenpodcastnetwork.com, or just go to iworkforhim.com, and it's right there on the front page. You can click on a tab. And it is a gathering of all the voices in the faith and work movement that are speaking into podcasts in one place. Not multiple places, into one place. There's 112 voices, and it's growing. I found 2 more today, where it's growing. We've got 112 different people speaking into what does it look like to connect your faith and your work, and some of them very specifically. There's over 25 podcasts specifically for Christian working women. There's one for Christian counselors. There's one for educators. We keep trying to find them, and if your listeners know of a podcast that's specifically speaking into faith and work, let us know and we'll get it on there.
Yes.
But the Awaken Podcast Network is really going to be a revolutionary, because it pulls everybody together and they're on one place. And the cool part about this website is it's also a web app, and coming soon to a studio near you, that can be attached to any website in America. So if they're a Christian business owner and they want to attach it so that their people can get access to these podcasts easily, we can put it on their website. We can put it on the Follower of One website.
Yep.
And that's the goal for 2021, to get it on a bunch of websites and make these podcasts famous so that people can know who to connect with in order to get equipped and discipled.
Exactly. Yeah, I love the fact that the number keeps growing. So it's growing rapidly. By the time this podcast airs, I hope it's grown even beyond that as well. So I believe God's calling a lot of his people to speak up and to do things together. And we've had conversations about the collaboration. Part of what's been so fun the last couple of years in Follower of One is I figure out what I believe God's calling me to do. We're doing some things together, like contributing to one of the books and things like that. So I'm excited. I love meeting people who God's called into this journey as well. Thank you for what you've done. You guys have been in this battle for a long time, so thank you very much.
I would consider battle a journey. As we've seen God put together a tapestry. We've always said there's so many voices, and there's over 3,000 ministries nationwide, specifically putting that message, our faith to our work. And in all of that, God is weaving an incredible tapestry, which we're only seeing the backs. We're seeing the ragged edge. We're seeing the knots on the back and the strings that are flying everywhere. But on the front is an amazing picture of how he's rescuing our nation, and how he's raising up the church outside of the 4 walls to transform our culture by us just living out our faith wherever we go.
Yeah, I agree. We definitely agree on this, because I believe that God's doing this even across national boundaries. He's reaching us and stretching us and causing different things to happen all over the globe. In the next Marketplace mission trip, we have 7 or 8 people from outside the U.S. again involved, and
That's
we
awesome.
just start talking about how to be multilingual and the mission trip, marketplace mission trips that we do, and things like that. So it's definitely, I believe, God's calling us globally to do things, and we get to see it. It's fun.
That'll make those nightly calls a lot more fun with 8 people with 8 different accents joining everybody in from all over this United States. They'll go, I thought you guys all spoke the same language, English. You're like, well, it kind of depends where you're from.
Yeah, for sure. You know, Mike, one of the things that I was just thinking about as we were sitting here is just, you know, this idea that for a long time, I think a lot of people will see that, you know, they've known in their own community that churches struggle to work together. And one of the things that we've said is, but there's plenty of sinners, because we're all sinners, right? There's plenty of them to go around for all the churches. And so to hold more loosely, you know, the things that they do and to collaborate better. And that's kind of the way we look at it within the context of connecting our faith and our work. There's so many different organizations that the Lord has prompted for different reasons to create programs or whatever their platform might be. And we just are saying, you know what, there's 50 million plus believers working in the workforce of just America. So there's plenty of them that need to hear in whatever context they're in that my work matters. And so that's why we did the platform, that, you know, for one person, you know, your podcast might really resonate with them, follower of one, and getting plugged in there. And for somebody else, they might want something with a little different flair or a different consistency. Maybe they don't want daily. Maybe they only, you know, can consume a podcast once a week or once a month. Yeah. And so there's just so many different, you know, God has allowed us each to have our own voice. And a lot of people are speaking into that in the realm of podcasts. So we're just excited to see how the workers will interact with it. And we consider ourselves all workers because we all, you know, are doing something unto the Lord, and being able to fulfill their need and feed into them a little bit through the podcast network, awakenpodcastnetwork.com.
And you've seen it, Mike, between churches. There's maybe not so much great collaboration, but in the marketplace, out there in the workplaces of America, when a bunch of marketplace believers get together, there's an amazing congealing, because nobody cares about denominations. Hey, we're just followers of Jesus. I don't care what kind of church you go to. Let's just worship Jesus and let's figure out how to do this thing.
Yes. Yeah, I've experienced that too. I meet with people every day that are from different backgrounds or different denominations. Mm-hmm. And it's not a topic of conversation. We're talking instead about the things that we have in common and the situation that we're in, because we're both. And I think this is what happens when God shakes up the world a little bit. I remember when social media was new and you met other Christians on Twitter back in 2009, and you immediately struck up a conversation because you were both in this new territory together and you focused on what you had in common. Fast forward to 2021, we're all in this kind of new world together between COVID and everything else that's going on. And so it's causing us to be more open, more sticky in our relationships. And I believe it's creating a lot of opportunity right now because everybody's confused. Churches are having a difficult time figuring out how to do what they've traditionally done. And all of us are trying to figure out what God's calling us to do. And so it's created a lot of excitement.
Yes.
I'm excited about your upcoming missions trip, Mike. You've got one coming up here pretty quick, don't you?
We do, actually. It starts next week as we're recording this, so it will be over by the time you hear it. But it will be our largest one. And we have more new people on this trip than before. I was just adding up some numbers because we'll also have a board meeting later. And I was trying to report all this to our board. It's just exciting to see the progress of how things are going. And we're, like what we talked about, we're working on this idea where any organization can do their own mission trip using our content. That's our next thing. We've been calling that Mission Trip in a Box. We hope to have that ready to go in just a few weeks after you hear this podcast, after it comes live.
Excellent.
In April of 2021 is when we expect that to go live. And so anybody who wants to can do their own marketplace mission trip with 3 or 4 friends. So we just, and we hear more, you guys hear about this too. We hear about different people trying new things and all the ideas are getting pushed. And so we've been talking about collaborating. And it's just great to see the things that you guys are doing, all the different podcasts and all the different interactions that you have with everyone in the marketplace and seeing how God brings that together. I really love the Awaken Podcast Network. Thank you for putting us on it. I think it's great when you look on there and you see all those different podcasts. There's plenty to listen to and plenty to experiment with. And so it's very cool.
Hey, listeners, one of the huge projects Martha and I have been working on for years is making it easy for every workplace believer to find all the voices speaking encouragement and equipping into the faith and work movement. Presenting the Awaken Podcast Network online at awakenpodcastnetwork.com. With over 130 different podcast voices speaking truth into you, the workplace believer, including over 30 podcasts dedicated to Christian working women. Go online to awakenpodcastnetwork.com. That's awakenpodcastnetwork.com.
When do you expect the books to be out? You said the end of the first quarter?
Yeah, hopefully. So hopefully that, even right now as people are hearing this, they're able to go to iworkforhim.com and see the details there. And if it's not ready to order, it'll be a pre-order situation. So coming very soon. Anybody who's written any kind of book knows that it's like a birth and it's like we have a due date, but you never know when that baby's going to actually come. So we're very excited about it. And, the thing there is that we have just a heart for equipping people. And I know that you do too, Mike. And I know why we just have these great conversations, because you, the listener, as you're listening to this, we just want you to get something that you can say, oh, I never thought about trying that. Or, well, if that person, if God prompted them to do it and they saw how it worked out, what could I do in my workspace and in my community? And so that's why we do what we do, is we believe that hearing other people's stories, their testimonies, we're not trying to ask you to mimic anything that anybody else is doing, but just asking God and saying, well, what do you want me to be doing? And how am I not stewarding my work like you want me to? And that was kind of a negative way to say that, but how can I steward it better? And a lot of people don't even think about stewarding their work and their time and their talents in that respect. And so we're just excited to be able to equip more people and point them towards resources that will help them on that journey, like Follower of One and the many other.
Everybody's got to go on a marketplace missions trip. Everybody needs to. What an incredible... that is some of the most fun we had in 2020 was on the marketplace missions trip, meeting great people from all across the country. The every night conversations were a riot. I know I dominated some of them, but I was having a good time.
But not just a good time, and it's always good to have fun, but impactful. To really see how just being intentional. It's what we talk about on I Work for Him all the time, is that your workplace is your mission field. And God gave you, Mike, the ability to kind of make that into a tangible, intangible, virtual reality, for people as they go to work.
Tangible, intangible.
Yeah, just trust me on that one. Okay. We're going to go with that. But really to make it happen so that they could really see their work as a mission field. So I just want to encourage the listeners that if this is something that you've heard it and you're like, I don't get how my work is a mission field, go on the marketplace missions trip and really see for yourself what God's given you right in front of you every day, whether it's on Zoom or it's in person. You have a way to connect with your coworkers and be Jesus, and it's pretty exciting.
Well, and I think thank you very much. I think that's the cool, crazy idea of all of this is we spent so many years trying to judge everyone else by comparing to them. And instead what I hope we do is we ask God, and if He tells us to do something that no one's ever heard of, let's go do it. Let's start figuring out how we can do it. because he definitely is in charge. We're not. And the
Thank
whole idea of a
goodness.
marketplace mission trip is just impossible. But a friend gave me the idea. It wasn't my idea. I'm just trying to make it happen. So it's just when we don't give up and we try and pursue what God has for us, it looks a little chaotic, or it may look different than anyone else has done. But God doesn't call us all to do the same things. And that to me is the most fun part of it.
Yeah.
It's just being willing to set aside what you think you should be doing and saying, okay, God, what is it you want me to do? Because, we in the last 2 years have switched from an all radio platform to an almost to 90% digital platform. And that I went kicking and screaming.
He did.
On that because we started off on the radio, and radio is fun. And I love trying to nail it, they call it hit the pole, when you're in and out on time. I love that the pressure was fantastic, but we're having way more impact going all digital. Focusing on that. Speaking of digital, Mike, one of the things we've also got going on in 2021, if I can mention this, is that okay? Are you out of time?
Go for it.
Okay. So one of the things we're also going to launch by the end of 2021 is 7 new additional I Work for Him radio programs and podcasts, where we're going to take the regular I Work for Him, pattern of a show, and we're going to drive it deeper into people who work in a church, who work with families, or who work in education, or work in business specifically, which we've done a lot of those, or work in government, or work in arts and entertainment, or work in the media, and drive deeper so people can hear, oh, okay, so if I'm maybe a superintendent of schools, what does it look like to live out my faith in my work? We've interviewed one from Modesto, California. Or maybe I am the Speaker of the House, an elected politician, which we interviewed one of them from the state of Florida, or whatever it may be. What does that look like to live out? And so we're going to drive deeper, and we're raising up right now co-hosts in those 7 categories that can specifically help us launch those brands, because we want to eventually take that even deeper, because people need to hear other faith stories, because we are all inspired by people's faith stories.
Yeah, and I just want to say that's an example of what kinds of things will be on the Awaken Podcast Network, and being able to drill it down like that and giving people resources. We know that not all of those focuses are being covered right now, and so that's why God's just kind of said, "Okay, do this next," and then let's see if that's helping people with where they're at. Because you said Speaker of the House, Jim, but it may be your local. Tax collector or a mayor, or it could be,
there was a bug guy. We voted for a bug guy here in Fort Myers. That was an elected position. Bug guy.
Oh, like to keep track of our bugs?
I think to kill the bugs.
But yeah, there's a lot of positions within each of those different areas. And so just being able to encourage them how they can live out their faith each and every day.
Yes, very cool. So if you're interested in learning how to take part in or do a podcast that addresses one of these 7 areas, talk to Jim and Martha as well. People can reach you at iworkforhim.com, correct?
Yes.
That's correct.
Yep.
iwork4him.com.
Yeah, iwork4him.com, and we will have links in the show notes to many of these things, including the website, the Awaken Podcast Network, and how to get in touch with you.
Excellent.
So very exciting things going on. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm grateful to you for the help that you've been in getting Follower of One going, and for all the things that you've done in the world of marketplace ministry. I'm excited to see how God will continue to use you guys and bless us in all of this as well. So thank you very much for what you've done.
Thank you. And to all your listeners, get signed up for the April Marketplace Missions Trip. Don't miss it.
Yes. Yeah, you can go to marketplacemissiontrip.com and do that. But check out iworkforhim.com as well. Thank you very much. Thanks for listening and sharing this podcast with your friends. And Jim and Martha, thank you for being on the show.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the I Work For Him podcast with your hosts, Jim and Martha Brangenberg. Please visit iworkforhim.com to learn more about connecting your faith and work, to join the I Work For Him Nation, or subscribe to our weekly blog. You can also follow us on social media at I Work For Him to stay up to date and meet our guests. If today's message spoke to you, please subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast platform. Your review will launch more workplace missionaries across America. That's at I Work For Him and online, iworkforhim.com. I work the number 4him.com.